This afternoon, we gathered at Hope Church in Mount Hope to meditate on the 7 last words of Jesus, which is a long-standing devotional practice in the church. Usually an ecumenical service where people from different denominations can gather. It's one that is quite popular among the churches because it's something on which we can all agree. We don't have to worry about doctrinal differences because we're reflecting on one of the central truths that bind the Christian churches together. When we reflect on the passion, the suffering, and the death of Jesus, we can all agree on the passages of Scripture that form these 7 last words. They are snippets of the various Gospels, scenes. And one of the words that was assigned to me was one of the words that we read this evening from the Gospel of John. It is finished. And as part of that meditation, the early piece of that meditation was actually the opening words of the Bible. Well, not exactly the opening words, but actually part of the story of creation, part of a story that we'll actually hear tomorrow. As Mother Mary tells us the story of creation, not exactly in the words of the Scriptures, but in a wonderful poem, "I'll make me a world." But it was the story of the creation of human beings. And it talks about God making us in the divine image. And when God is finished doing that, he looks at what he has accomplished, and the writer says, God said, "It is good." It is very good. And then we skip along in this meditation and we get to this very brief bit from John's Gospel where Jesus says, "It is finished." There's something about us here in the West where history for us is linear. It's in a long line. We like stories, particularly short stories, novels, that sort of thing, movies. They have a beginning, a development in the middle, and we like an ending, particularly endings that wrap everything up. We like that. That's something that's very much a part of our culture because it goes all the way back. Now, I'm getting very philosophical here. It goes all the way back to Greek culture because the Greek notion of time, of chronos, of chronological time, follows that pattern. It's past, present, and future. That's what we really like. We sort of measure even ourselves, even our daily lives that way. What happened then, what's happening now, and what we can look forward to. And so even our life with God, we try to fit into those kind of categories. And so even this great mystery that we celebrate in these days, we try to fit into those categories too. And so all of a sudden, somebody might ask, well, why do you do all this stuff? I don't know how many times I've been asked that question, particularly about all of these very ornate and difficult ceremonies we do during these Holy Week days. Why do we do all of this? And I think because these traditions that we hold actually are not all that Western at all. In fact, probably the most dramatic ones that I have ever actually witnessed, I witnessed from a window in a friend's apartment when I was still resident in Buffalo, New York, and across the street was Annunciation Hellenic Orthodox Church. And when they were celebrating their Holy Week, in particular this day, Good Friday, and watching their celebrations, which would go on for hours. Hours. And they would get caught up in mysteries. There would be singing and dirges and processions in and out of the church and around the block. It would make us look like just a minute or two compared to what we do. They would get caught up in the mystery, and that's the key. Because you see, when Jesus says it is finished, he's not looking at it in chronological time the way we do. The Greeks had another word for time too. It was what we talk about in cosmological time, the time of mysteries. It was the kind of thing when God made creation, he was not looking at it from the beginning to the end. We get caught up in the 7 days of creation. How many times did the earth turn around, and how many 24-hour days were there in creation? We get all caught up in all of that. It had nothing to do with any of that. It was about God looking at all that God had made, the vast universe that God had made. God isn't part of that. God is standing apart from that and seeing everything that God has made, and God is saying, this is all very good. So God sees it not in time at all. God is seeing it from the very beginning to the very end all at once. When God saw it in that first moment, he saw its end too. And he said, this is very good. When he made it, he also saw it break apart. When he made it, he knew we'd mess it up. When he made it, he knew he would have to rescue it. When he made it, he had a plan already to fix it. At least from our perspective. The beginning of John's Gospel, we see it. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, and the Word was there before anything was made. And through this Word, all was made that is made. And that Word became flesh. That is Jesus. So this Jesus that we see nailed to a cross, and for which we mourn on this day, this Jesus saw what would happen to this beautiful creation that God had made. Because if we read the words of Scripture, it says, let us make humans in our image. Already, God saw what we would do. And he went, you got a job, kid. You got to go down there and fix it. And that's what we celebrate today. But you see, we don't see it like God sees. We don't see it from above. We see it from within. We experience it in a very different way. And so we need to constantly remind ourselves over and over and over and over again how it all comes to be. And so we tell the story. We tell the story to remind ourselves who we are. We tell the story to remind ourselves who God is. We tell ourselves the story to remind ourselves how much God truly loves the creation that God has made. We tell ourselves the story over and over again to tell ourselves how much God has loved us. Love that creation that God has made, that which He named very good, because we are part of that. And we need to be reminded how good we really are. That we are so good, we are worth God's life. That's what this is about. It's too easy to forget that. And when we forget it, then we forget who God is. And we forget who we are. And we think we're in charge when we're really not. Brothers and sisters, we must always remember that we are the created ones and that God is the creator. We must always remember that we were the broken ones and God is the healer. We must always remember that we are the ones in need of grace and love. And God is the one whose loving kindness is without limit and without end. Keeping this memory alive is what gives us life. Keeping this memory alive is what propels us from this world of chronos, of mere history, of linear time, into that tremendous mystery, which is the very life of God. Enter deeply. Walk with Jesus into that mystery. Just the other day, Mother Mary showed me an icon. And it reminded me of this very reality. Because in the East, mystery is the order of the day. You can't see an icon with linear time. You must see it with eyes that see mystery as God sees. See this time, this hour, this mere 60 minutes, not as past, present, and future, but as the eternal now. As God pouring out God's immense and undying love for you. Never ending, inexhaustible, always there. Accept it fully, totally, and always. And you will live.